Meeting of the City of South Fulton Charter Commission dated August 16, 2022 at 6:30. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Good evening, everyone. And as the chairman said, welcome to the August 16th meeting. It's a roll call. William Bill Edwards, Chair.
Here.
Judge Kenya Johnson, Vice Chair.
Present.
Benny Crane.
Present.
D. Franklin.
Present.
Doree Henry. John Herring.
Present.
Daphne Jordan.
Present.
Cecily Cole Martin. Suzanne Ockleberry.
Present.
Marshall J. Taggart, Jr.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum, and just wanted to let you know from the City Attorney's Office, we have City Attorney Vincent Hyman and Assistant City Attorneys Catherine Vernet and Reginald.
Oh, Reginald.
Forgot the last name?
Original.
Yeah.
Just Reginald.
Reginald, what's your last name? McClendon.
Y'all know Mr. McClendon.
Good. Mr. Crane, would you do the invocation again for us today?
Sure. Let us pray. Dear gracious God, we thank you for this day and for all the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Lord, we just pray that you will bless every household that's represented today, God, and we pray that the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts will be acceptable in your sight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Clerk, there is no flag here, but I'm gonna forgive you. Okay. There's a roll call, but you just did that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. I take a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote, please, by hand.
It's unanimous.
Okay. I need a motion to approval of the 8/1/22 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote, please.
That's unanimous.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's hot here. We're going to go through as much as we can. All right. I'd like to see our meetings last no longer than 2 hours anyway. I don't know if we're going to make 2 hours in here with the heat that we have. First of all, one thing I wanted to do, an issue that I would like to bring back. I find myself on the prevailing side, and that is the issue concerning the vote for the at-large seats. I have been doing a lot of research and talking to people, and I've sent you all some of the comments, one of the comments from one of the people, and I just think that we need to go back and have a conversation and revisit that. So I would like to go ahead.
I was just going to let you know for the record, there was no vote taken. There was a motion by Ms. Ockleberry, seconded by Mr. Herring, but the second was withdrawn, so the motion died. So there was no action. There was no action.
That makes it even better. So I would like to, if we can, let us talk about the possibilities of having at-large positions. I've even talked to some of the existing council people about this, and talked to some other council people and the National League of Cities. Did we send that out, Corey?
Yes, sir. That was emailed to all members.
Okay, and I'm sure you all got all of that, National League of Cities and stuff. So, Ms. Ockleberry, I'm gonna turn the floor over to you because you were to start the conversation.
Well, I would make a motion that we revise, I guess it is
Microphone,
oh, sorry.
turn it on.
That one, yeah.
It don't matter.
Is this one on?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Sorry, I make a motion that we would recommend that 2.10, I think it is. This is the other one. I'm trying to find where I did it. Be revised to allow, it's 2.10A, to recommend that it be revised to read that there will be a part-time mayor, 5 part-time council persons, and 2 at-large part-time council persons. Or no, I guess, hold on, let me back up. A part-time mayor, 7 part-time council members, of which 2 shall be at-large members.
That's your motion. There a second? I can second.
Yes.
it.
I was second.
All right, I will second it also. Discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead. D?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out, okay, Ms. Ockleberry, why do you feel the need that we should have that?
And if you look at the information that was sent out, I guess us and Sandy Springs are the only ones that don't have, of the new cities that were formed, or I guess any cities in Georgia that don't have at-large council
Okay.
people. The reason why Sandy Springs doesn't have an at-large council person is because they're concerned about dilution of the minority vote.
Right.
For City of South Fulton, we don't
Mr.
have
Mayor,
that
we can't,
issue.
I can't understand it
She
now.
can't hear you. They can't hear
Is
you.
it on?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking to my committee member and not into the microphone. Okay, and so the issue is, we don't have that issue in South Fulton County, the City of South Fulton, with dilution of minority votes, since we're a majority African-American city. I think when you look at the other cities that are formed, the reason why they have at-large council people is to ensure that with district representatives, there is someone or other representatives looking out for the entire city. One example I would give why for us it would be beneficial is where we have a vacant council district and we're waiting for that election to occur, at least there's an at-large individual, if we decide that that's the way we want to go, that's looking out for that district.
Okay.
But rather than everybody saying, you know, I'm concerned about my district, there's 2 at-large folks who are looking out for the entire city and taking a more holistic view.
Okay,
And D, if I can add?
okay.
I would say that, you know, when you become an elected official here in the city or any city, you take a vow. And the vow is for the city.
Correct, correct,
It's not for individual districts.
correct.
And so what happens a lot of times, you get a lot of people who are just claiming that this is my district.
Correct.
Don't come over to my district. You know, all these. I think this would create an image for us that will allow us to achieve the total city
Okay,
that we vowed we was going to do in the first place.
okay, okay.
All right, Mr. I saw his hand first. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to share some information, because most of you, if not all, had the benefit of reading an exhaustive letter that was submitted by a citizen that talked about the pluses and minuses, more pluses about having at-large seats. And we have to be careful when we read a well-written letter. It doesn't mean it's factual, because much of the stuff that was in that letter was not factual. First of all, it was stated that there was not a discussion in the legislation about at-large seats. In fact, there was a lot of conversation about at-large seats. Those of you who were on the ground or close to the legislation back in 2013, when that first bill was drafted and passed out of the House, it had 2 at-large seats. One was the mayor and one was the president of the city council. It was a different style of government. But that notwithstanding, it went over to the Senate, where the bill was gutted, and it was changed to a format much like Johns Creek that had all at-large seats, including the mayor. It was all at-large. Now, the community chimed in. The community very forcefully and very loudly said, we don't want at-large seats. So that legislation was changed. I took it upon myself. I reached out to Dr. Camilla Moore, who had favor in the Republican Party, with the request that she go to the party and ask them to change it. It was supported by the author of the bill, Roger Bruce, and that was changed. So people knew exactly what they were signing up for when they said, we don't want at-large seats. And for us to suggest that all of a sudden, because you have some at-large seats, it fixes the problem about a district rep taking ownership of the district. Those who have been in elected office and been in government where there were some at-large seats know that the at-large person is rarely ever welcome in a district that's not theirs, and they don't have a district. They don't have a district per se, even though they are elected citywide or countywide. They are elected without a home. And again, those who have been elected, they know that. They have been on both sides of that issue where they know it creates a lot of fights. Now, the last thing I would say, if you'll indulge me, Mr. Chair, is that a lot of the conversation, I want to be completely honest, open, and transparent about how we got here, or at least where I got on board with the conversations. It was about Old National Highway. Old National Highway in its current construct has 3 city council reps, and each of those elected representative council people want a different thing. They have a different vision for Old National. And there was a conversation about, first of all, let's reduce the city council down to 5. It was all about getting down to 1 city council person, and now I think with gerrymandering this in a way of speaking, of trying to fix the problem where it could create others. I just want to be on the record. I don't fully support it. I'm not fully opposed to it, but I want to make sure it's for the right reasons, and the reason that I have heard thus far is that this will fix bickering and ownership of a district. This does not fix that.
Mr. Taggart.
I just wanted to clarify for the record. I mentioned and said and made a comment about something being asinine.
Yeah.
And I said that in the sense that because I heard from my colleague and like to apologize to my colleague because it referenced the city of Atlanta. I looked at the whole aspect of the city of Atlanta and city of South Fulton having 2 different types of forms of government. And then just doing a little research and understanding what's being called, I think in this letter, a hybrid model. Right. It's not a bad idea to have 5 districts and 2 at large. I think the representation, as Ms. Ockleberry mentioned, will be in a better position because you'll have, if you have an absence, will have representation. So there is some consideration in this case, not interested in growing the council, but I think having the structure to be able to have additional representation may be much better for our city. So I'm in favor of the motion on the floor.
All right, I have one thing. Did you want to say something, Dee? Okay, I have one thing to say. We'll call for the vote, and that is, I have been, and Mr. Crane, I honorably disagree. And I've been an elected official for now 17, 18 years. And started in Fulton County Commission, we had 2 at-large seats. Am I right, Corey? Yes, sure. And the commission, the chairman of the commission weighed heavily in terms of the votes needed for, and as for myself, votes needed for to change something in a district. So I just feel that I hope I didn't make anybody feel that I was saying this because people are getting too big with this district thing. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying that it will achieve, by doing this, it will achieve this whole overall commitment to serve the city at large. Mm-hmm. So at this time, we have a motion by Ms. Ockleberry, and a second. Who was it by?
Mr. Taggart.
Mr. Taggart. I'll close discussion. Let's vote, please. Hands.
It's all in favor. Those against?
Those who against? What was the vote?
7-1.
Okay.
Approved.
I want to put another item on the table. I'll let someone else do it. Anyone else has a item that they want to discuss?
Motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider. Is there a second? It fails for lack of a second.
Point of personal privilege.
What is your point?
I don't know if this commission is aware that the delegation, the City of South Fulton delegation contemplated the very, very same issue in the last 2 legislative cycles. And they determined from legislative council, even though I realize, and we all realize, what we suggest is non-binding. But
well,
but if I may finish.
Yeah.
They had conversation with legislative council about this very, very same issue, and they determined that it was not feasible because someone would have been just elected or re-elected to a seat, or just about to be elected, and it would be unfair to the voters to have voted for someone, and now you may be potentially taking them out of that seat. Just thought you might want to know that.
I'm going to rule that point of order isn't germane. The vote has been taken, and we're going to move on.
Mr. Mayor, that was not a,
Point of order has to be
it wasn't a
in
point of
line
order.
with,
It was a motion of personal privilege, not a point of order.
what did he say, Carl?
I thought he said point of order.
I thought he did.
It was a personal
Okay,
privilege.
well, let's do
privilege.
this.
It was a
We've given you the personal privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? We're in, where are we, Corey, in section 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, we ended at 2.13
Okay.
at
Ms.
the last meeting.
Ms. Ockleberry, go ahead.
I think it was 2.10B. Correct me if I'm wrong, when we left, we were addressing,
You're correct.
okay, issues regarding the appropriate documentation for establishing residency. And I want to make a motion that we allow city council under their powers, under 1.12, and I had it. Hold on a minute. I'm sorry.
B.
1.12 B,
Is that the one?
well, under the city council powers, and I'll find it in a minute, to establish through ordinance what documentation is sufficient for a council person or the mayor to establish residency throughout their term. I just think we're getting bogged down a little bit, so if we've approved the concept, then we can allow city council and the mayor through their majority determination to decide what is sufficient for residency.
I think, Ms. Ockleberry, you're right in some respect, but we are a board that recommends. We don't make laws. And if we recommend something, it may be something that the city council might like, or a starting point for their conversation, Ms. Ockleberry. So I don't think, I really like I sent everybody out the residency requirements for the Fulton County schools. I think we discussed that before we left the other night. I think that that's a good start for them. They could change it. Of course, you know, they can do anything they want to. I just think that we need to, if we're going to say if there's a residency, we need to show at least some requirements, and they can either accept them or not accept them. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the requirements that's listed in the Fulton County School.
Do you know what those are?
Mr. Chair, I was
Yes,
gonna
I
ask,
sent it to everybody. I'm
is
sorry,
there a way
Billy,
that,
you didn't get it? You didn't get it?
no, I received it, but I'm just saying for the benefit of everybody here, can we place it up here so everybody can see it? Just, it's a matter of privilege for everybody. to
And Mr.
understand.
Crane, I'm sorry, you didn't get it. I don't know what happened.
Who you talk to?
It's
Mr.
okay.
Crane.
Oh, I received it, sir. I just wanted to make sure everybody, yeah, I saw the email.
While he's looking that up, I'll acknowledge Ms. Ockleberry.
My other issue, I
You gotta
guess,
stay on this issue now.
yes, I'm on this issue,
All right.
but my other concern is under 1.12B10, the city government has the authority to adopt rules addressing ethics. And so I'm wondering if a council person or the mayor does not live in the city, isn't that something that can be addressed through an ethics complaint?
Absolutely.
So my concern is, I think we're trying to tailor the charter recommendations in this instance toward what we believe to be or possibly be the behavior of one individual. And I'm looking at what is, best for the city.
Yeah.
So if it is an ethics violation, which can be handled through an ethics complaint, is it necessary to make a recommendation that the charter be amended to include a person provide residency information every year?
If it's approved by the General Assembly, all right? First of all, you made a statement, I want to make sure I clear that up. Nothing we do here is targeted to one person. Everything we do here are universal changes that need to be made so that the government can be run efficiently. So while we're here, one of you are learned legal professionals. I think the question is, as we do the residency, and if someone is not in line with the residency, can we be forwarded over to the ethics board? I say yes, but
They didn't give us a microphone today, so I don't know if we can be heard
we hear you.
on
Oh,
the broadcast. But I'll start out by saying that, in my opinion, I think adding residency requirements would be, I think that's something that's under the purview of state law. So I think that kind of action would be preempted by state law. And it's also my opinion that the staff at the General Assembly probably would advise them not to include something like that in the city charter. But to your direct question, I do think that a residency challenge could be referred to the ethics board, and the ethics board would take whatever actions that are under their purview. But under state law, I believe that the proper way to challenge a sitting elected official's residency would be through action in Superior Court.
Whatever action we take here and action that is ratified at the state level, we're still not going over state law. We're not going beyond state law. So we're okay to make a recommendation. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Who's that recognizing? Was it you? Okay, was there a motion on the floor for this? Did we have a motion, Mr. Truett?
No, there was, Ms. Ockleberry had started making a motion, but there's definitely no second.
So I make a motion that the residency issue not be included in the charter, that it remain as it is, because there is the ability for an individual to file either an ethics complaint or a complaint in Superior Court if they believe the mayor or the city council member does not reside in the city after they are elected.
Well, let me just say this.
Is that?
I think that you can do that now. The other thing, I think this has to be something specific to show that you actually violated something. And what we voted on the first time, I thought was good. What we're just doing is adding a list of things that you have to prove that residency. So, but you know, we're in America. You can sue anybody for anything.
Well, I thought we were saying last time that there was going to be a requirement. They'd have to show that they live within the city every 6 months or every year, rather than,
No.
as the charter reads now, they just shall continue to reside within the city and their district, and then the mayor can reside anywhere within the city. If
No.
I'm mistaken,
Mr. Clerk, I think that that doesn't sound like what we voted for the last time. And I think what we did was we said that he has to have residency requirement, and that he'd have to provide it each year, right? but we did not state what those registry requirements are, and that's what we're getting at today.
Right, that is correct. There was a motion by Judge Johnson, and it was approved to add that the mayor and city council members should submit at least once per year on or before June 30th the current legal residential address. And it was a friendly amendment to require proof of residency, but that was not defined.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do today, is define what that proof of residency is. Go ahead, Mr.
And I
Sure.
thought that you sent out something that gave that qualifying
That's it.
moment where those items or documents that are required in order to qualify that particular statement. So I think we should add those items into.
That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to, I think we had the first vote. We're just trying to identify or make suggestions on what those items should be.
Thank you.
And you put them on the, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Ms. Ockleberry made a motion to not include it in there, but there was no second.
By way of explanation, Reggie McClendon, Assistant City Attorney, that motion is out of order, as even if it were to be ratified, it would result in no action. Therefore, by doing nothing, the commission would accomplish the same thing.
I don't know if I'm with you on that one.
You
You
mean
couldn't-
her motion?
Excuse me, I had the floor. Why are you saying that it would not have any merit?
Her motion is to not include what has been presented.
Right,
And therefore, if we didn't include it, the charter would remain the same as it is now,
okay.
resulting in no
So the
action.
action that
Therefore,
we,
that motion is out of order.
the action that we need to have is either to approve is to approve it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion?
If the commission so chooses.
Yes. And is there a motion to approve the list that I sent out to you all from the public school system, which seems to work very well? It's just a suggestion that we're making to people.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I mean,
Mr. Taggart?
so her motion dies?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we state that for the record? I know the attorney made the recommendation, but I just want to make sure that,
The chair would have to officially rule that motion
Well,
out
that
of order.
motion is dead based on what the
Okay.
attorney says. I'm looking for a motion now to accept the list of guidelines from the Fulton County School Board as a recommendation.
I move for the proof of residency item that's listed before us that has to do with the recommendations for proof for residency
Okay.
for City of South Fulton elected officials.
There a second?
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any further discussion? Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you for your recognition. The question is, do we simply want to say and refer to the active listing of Fulton County Schools required documents without us listing specifically water bill, electric bill, because their residency may change? So are we looking
Go ahead.
to specifically delineate the documents or simply reference the requirements in line with the school board?
This is why I sent it out, for you all to look at it, and you could have enhanced it or taken something away from it. So you still have that opportunity if you want to add something. But it was I thought it was a pretty good list. But we're in discussion. You can do it.
But the question is, do we merely reference the requirements by the school board without specifically listing the documents? Do we want to be broad or do we want to be detailed with the actual document name?
I think I'm trying to follow you, and I think we listed all the documents. Okay, they're all listed, and I think for us, that's about all we need to do. We're gonna take Ms. Jordan, Ms. Ockleberry, then we're gonna move the vote.
Mr. Craig?
Okay, we'll take Ms. Jordan, Ms. Ockleberry, and Mr. Crane, and we'll move the vote.
So I just have two quick comments. So it does say provide one proof from each list. So it doesn't mean that they have to provide everything
Right.
on that list. And I do want to speak to the fact that the reason why we're even discussing this is because it was brought to our attention that there have been some discussions about current elected officials not being able to provide proof of residency, and there has been no action by a citizen to file an ethics complaint. There's been no one who went down and paid money to file anything at Superior Court. So I guess where I'm getting at is if that's what we're waiting on, we're still waiting. And I feel like we have provided something for the state legislators to take a look at. If they so deem that this is sufficient, then we'll see it in the next charter. If we don't, then we're gonna look at our elected officials here at the local level to do something different so that we don't continue to have elected officials that are not really residents in the city of South Fulton.
Did I acknowledge? Ms. Ockleberry, were you in?
I make a motion
No,
that,
we got one on the floor.
That's fine.
Let me get everybody in.
what's the motion, can I ask what's the motion that's on the floor?
You can move to the question.
Move for the question, what's the motion?
Yes, she wants to know the motion on the floor is a motion by Mr. Taggart, second by Mr. Crane, to use the Fulton County School residency requirements. And I didn't know if Mr. Taggart accepted Judge Johnson's suggestion to list the actual items in here for the record.
I'll accept that as, if I may, Mr. Chair. Yes, you can. Okay. Accept that as a friendly amendment to the motion to include those recommendations.
Mr. Chair.
Well, she mentioned the items here.
Those recommendations are what we have from the school board.
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair she made a statement, but she did not include any additional recommendations. So there was nothing to
Do you want that to be part of the discussion? I don't mind. I mean, we'll
there's
listen.
nothing
I'll
to
add
discuss.
whatever we need to do.
If she tells me she think a AARP card is good, it's not on that list.
So we're gonna call for the question. Is that what we're gonna do?
Well, let me
Okay, I'm sorry.
Let me
You got-
acknowledge Mr. Crane.
Go, no problem.
Oh, two things real quick. I did not second Mr. Taggart's motion, number one.
I'm sorry.
That was not me.
For the record, Mr. Herring.
Okay. The other thing is, in hearing Judge Johnson, I didn't hear an amendment. I heard her trying to get some clarity as to whether we use the document in total or do we take the bullet points and say these are the requisite proofs of residency. And I certainly would support we don't have to give credit to the school board, just take the information and list them as acceptable proofs.
I'm sorry, you're right, Mr. Crane. I apologize for using the reference to the school board.
Right.
We just take this acceptable proof and move on. I didn't want it listed I don't think it's gonna be listed if it passes the legislature as the school board recommends. I just think that it's just gonna be the bullet points.
And Mr. Chair, I didn't say Fulton County School
Okay,
Board
all right,
in my
okay.
motion.
No,
so
no
we're
problem.
good.
Let's vote. I'll close the debate. Let's vote, please, by show of hands. Do anybody want the motion read again? Go right ahead.
So we have a motion by Mr. Taggart, second by Mr. Herring, to use the residency list as listed in the Fulton County School document
Okay.
as acceptable proof.
Vote by show of hands, please.
Okay, nays and abstentions. So we have 7-1, 1 abstention.
All right. Okay. Anybody else? We're still having 1 and 2. We need to get down into 3. Mr. Clerk, while they're doing it, would you find for me under the old charter that talks about your office and where that office is supposed to be? Under where did that office fall?
I think that's in section 3.
The clerk is in 4.1?
Huh?
4.13 for the clerk?
4.13?
In the old, but Mr. Crane, I was looking for because it's different now than it was in the original document.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I was looking for the old.
city clerk is on page 27, line 456.
4.13.
4.13, yeah,
Is that the original document, Ms. Crane?
it is.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, would you read the language of that original document for the clerk and wait?
The current language as it is now, the city manager shall appoint a city clerk who shall not be a council member. City clerk shall be custodian of the official city seal, maintain city council records required by this charter, and perform such other duties as may be required by the city manager. The city council shall provide for the compensation of the city clerk. City clerk shall be the official custodian of all city records, including but not limited to records and documents from ethics hearings and hearings to remove the mayor or council members.
That, does it specifically say who, under who, where the city clerk works? Under the old document? I didn't hear it. What does it say?
Under the old document, it says, instead of the city manager shall appoint, it says the mayor shall appoint in the original charter.
So what I'm saying
Should
is,
nominate.
To nominate, I'm sorry.
so what I'm hearing then is that under the old charter, the clerk's office was under the council.
Nomination by the mayor, approval by the council, and subject to supervision and removal by the council.
There you go. And what we have now is, we have a form of government where your office is now under the city manager.
City manager, yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the changes that was made in June by the General Assembly, changing and putting the city clerk under the supervision of the city manager.
Well, I'm going to say this, and Mr. Crane, I want you to know that that's one of the biggest mistakes we ever made
How so?
with moving him to the city manager's office. And I can tell you that without getting into any specifics, that was more of a defensive move than anything, okay? And I mean, if you want the city manager to speak, the city clerk to speak for himself, he can. But I think that being under giving support to the council is more vital than being stuck under the city manager somewhere, giving out who knows what. But that's just my opinion. Mr. Ockleberry?
I just have a question. We jumped from, I think we were at 2.13 to the city clerk at 4.13. Are we going to address any other,
Thank you for correcting me. I can hold off. But
any
I
other
give y'all something to think about.
recommendations we have
Yeah,
before
yeah,
then?
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. But we can get that. But I thought it was this 4.03 in the old charter, right?
It's 4.13
In the
in the
new-
charter we have.
In the new charter?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we stopped at 2.
Well, listen, I can just leave it here and ask that each one of you just give it a thought as we come back, okay? I'll share that with my recommendations and get some from the floor. Mr. Ockleberry, go ahead.
I want to make a motion that under 2.14, are we moving on to 2.14?
Yes.
Because I know we said.
Go
we
right
were
ahead.
gonna- Okay. Under 2.14, and Mr. Clerk, can you bring up the edited charter for me, please?
Yeah,
That,
we lost it for some reason here.
oh, okay, the 2.14, we make a recommendation that the mayor and council members' compensation and expenses be provided for in the charter. And I say that because every other charter that I looked at for the new cities that were formed, the mayor and council members, since they are part-time, their compensation is set in the charter, as well as their expenses. And I think, you know, the city, as constituents, we want to be sure of a cap on that amount. And either it's tied to similar cities for their compensation and expenses, or that it be set forth in the charter.
Well, Mr. Clerk can correct me. I think there is a cap in it.
Regarding the salary?
Are you saying, Ally, she's
The
saying expenses?
compensation and expenses.
I think it's
Compensation and expenses. For example, I think that they can hire their own aides, but there's a cap on the amount of salary that can be paid. And also with your P card, there is a cap, definitely, on that one, all right? Other than that, I don't know any other expenses that would come out. Am I correct, Mr. Clerk? Any other expenses?
Yeah, I don't think that's covered in the charter, though. That's by ordinance, I believe.
So
yeah.
there's so there's an existing ordinance that caps it.
So my motion is that we set forth in the charter as a recommendation a cap on their compensation and their expenses, either based upon similar cities of similar size, or some other indicia to prevent just runaway, salaries and expenses.
So, Council, I want to ask that as it reads, and there is what did we say it was? A resolution?
Yeah, ordinance.
An ordinance. It's an ordinance, so that's a city law.
It's
All right?
already-
That I don't see where it was going to be necessary if there's a city law and ordinance that spells it out. Am I wrong, or what do you think?
Well, I guess
Sir.
I understand from a city law, they're voting on it themselves versus it being capped in the charter.
Well,
Or some indicia to
There's
make it
cer-
commensurate with
Yeah.
some other.
well, there's certain things that's going to be done based on home rule. All right? And so you may not read it in the charter, but when they have the right to do city ordinances, and their city ordinances, which you want to explain is in line with state law, that it supersedes it. Am I correct?
I'm not sure that I understand the exact question.
Okay.
like to be
If the
now.
charter says one thing, based on home rule, all right, there's an ordinance
City order.
that adds to or takes away from it, but does not go over it. The ordinance is what you turn to when there's an issue. Am I correct?
No, the charter would supersede a city ordinance.
So you're saying it's better for us to put it in as even though it's an ordinance, which is a city law, even though it's an ordinance right now, you're saying that it should possibly be added to the charter?
That would be up to the commission. Being that the charter is currently silent on the actual amount of the compensation, then the ordinance would prevail. But if
That's
you
my point. That's the point I'm trying to
but
make.
if you put it in the charter, then the charter would prevail over any
I
ordinance.
understand. My personal opinion, that it is an ordinance. An ordinance is city law, and I think that it will help. It will determine what it's going to be. So, let me get Mr. Taggart, then Mr. Crane.
I'd just like to hear more, because I don't think a motion has been put on the floor, but
No.
for Ms. Ockleberry, which cities are you referring to when you say that it's been included in the charter?
So I looked at Brookhaven, Sandy Springs, Milton, and one other city. And they all set forth what the mayor and council members' compensation is in the charter, because they are part-time individuals. So the way, that's important, I guess, to me as a citizen, because by ordinance, the council is voting on it. And not to say that, bad behavior would happen, but the council could decide, okay, we're gonna, determine that our compensation should be $100,000. And they could vote on it and approve it by ordinance. If it is set by charter to say you're limited to X amount, or there's some indicia that it has to be set to cities of a similar size, I think there's some safeguards for the citizens so that we're not looking at runaway salaries and runaway expenses. One of the things that I've heard, just in general, is the budget that the council persons have for their expenses, which seems to be exorbitant for being a part-time council person. So, as I said, as a citizen of the county, I'm just looking at what is the best use of our funds and how do we ensure that they're getting compensated, but compensated commensurate with their position, and they don't have the opportunity to then set their salaries at some exorbitant amount that's not commensurate with the work that they're doing.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
may do a
Yes.
follow-up question. Can you give the commission on what are those salaries in terms of the ones you looked at, were Brookhaven, Sandy Springs? Do you have any amounts in this line? Are we currently in line with those salaries?
I can go look them up. I didn't bring that
problem.
with me, but
Okay.
my motion was to recommend that the salaries, the compensation and expenses be set forth in the charter.
Okay, Mr. Crane?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this commission is aware, but in the original charter, as is the case with all new cities, the salaries compensation was set in the charter. In the original charter, it's in section 2.14, where it set forth a dollar amount. As the city government found resources, tax dollars came in, and they assessed the gravity of the work that they were doing, I guess they saw fit to modify that, to leave it in the purview of the city council through ordinance, which makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
I certainly don't think it's a great idea for us to mirror other cities, because we don't necessarily know, when we cap that based upon what some other cities doing, we don't know how fiscally responsible they have been in their city. How much of a budget surplus are they carrying by ordinance? Is it done responsibly? Now, my comment is specifically toward the compensation, not the expenses. As to the expenses, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think they are allocated $60,000 per council person, which seems to be inordinately high. I certainly think that, now, I don't want to put that in the hands of the state government either, but I think that the city needs to revisit those numbers. I think that amount is too high, but I certainly support leaving the compensation at the discretion of the city council by ordinance, based upon their fiscal responsibility in having the funds to pay for it.
And I do agree with that. I'm just having a little trouble trying to rectify a recommendation from us with the city ordinance. And I think also the city ordinance, Mr. Clerk, is you have to put in the Muni Code, right?
Yes, and I have actually the legislation where, mayor and council approved their salary differently than what was in the original charter.
Mm-hmm. And under, once again, I'm going to speak to the attorneys. Obviously, under home rule, they have the right to do that. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have to consider this too, what you see, but this does not take all the powers away from the city. There's such thing as home rule that they could use to change things, and that change will be recorded in what the clerk has, something called Muni Code, that lists all those changes. Go ahead, Ms. Ockleberry.
Can I ask the clerk to explain how they approved either their salary or expenses that were different than what was in the charter?
Yeah, I can't speak to the council's decision regarding their expense accounts and salary, but their salary was changed by home rule.
Okay.
And
I guess I was asking more, what was the difference? I didn't mean to say how they did it, but
yes,
what was the difference as to what they approved versus what was in the...
yeah, the current salaries, the mayor makes $37,676, and the council members make $27,676. And of course, as Mr. Crane indicated, in the enabling legislation, the mayor made $23,000, and the council members made $13,000.
Also,
Madam Vice Chair.
When we first began this conversation, I was a little bit reluctant to list dollar amounts in the
Yes.
charter.
Yes.
I see that some charters do list dollar amounts and others don't. And so I yield to the will of this body. However, in a city, as we were shopping and selling the city of South Fulton, we did reference about being in the black and how well funded we would be. And I would just take this conversation a step further in that our mayor and our city council members should be compensated according to the median income of the area in which they serve. And to hear the current amounts don't quite seem up to muster, but something to consider.
I think, let's not get too engrossed in the amount of money. And I think that, and I want y'all to go back and look at, and maybe, Mr. Clerk, if you could send them something as it pertains to home rule, so everybody can understand what the issue of home rule is. Because if you can put $1,000 a piece on here, and they, under home rule, they can come back tomorrow and change it. So I'm just saying, I would not dive into what somebody should make or what they shouldn't make. You have to realize too, they're all part-time employees. Mister, go ahead. Let me acknowledge you. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, state law will allow the municipal governing authority to change their salaries, either via ordinance or via home rule. If they do it via home rule as a change to the charter, then there are more notice requirements that they have to give for that type of a change.
That's correct.
So that would be the difference than just doing it via ordinance. However, they can still do it. And just and one further point is that state law requires that if they make that type of change, it does not go into effect until the next after the next election and someone else has the ability to take that seat.
That's correct. Was there any hands? I'm sorry, let me get Mr. Taggart. Did you want to? Okay.
Just for clarification, I'm just doing a quick math. I mean, you're talking about increasing 14,000 for both the mayor and the council person. I mean, there may be some ideologies, because every city that was named, they're on the northern arc of Fulton County. And so that thought process for them moving to place it in the charter may be based on that ideology. But I think in this case, you may want to look at home rule being an opportunity to have the council and ultimately the mayor, if there's a tie, to really play into this whole piece of setting that salary and being reasonable. And so I think it's the reasonable portion. And I do agree with my colleague, who's the co-chair, something that's reasonable in terms of the part-time work commensurate with what they're doing. And so leave it with the council to vote on it. I mean, that to me, we don't necessarily have to benchmark ourselves. I'm pretty sure I can understand what their ideology is in other areas, fiscally conservative. But at the same time, we don't want to run away train. So I think who our elected officials are, that should be something that should be before you make the decision to put the person in office.
Okay.
To make sure they're not there to
Okay.
make a lot of money.
There was a motion. There was not a second. Am I correct, Mr. Clerk?
No, I didn't have a second.
Okay.
I just had Ms. Ockleberry made the motion.
All right. Let's go on to the next item. Fails for lack of a second. Madam Vice Chair, go ahead.
I would like to draw to the commission's attention section 2.16, removal of officers. In that section, it references that the mayor, council member, or other appointed officers shall be removed from office for, and they list causes. I would suggest to this commission that the recommendation be that this section only apply for appointed officers, as state law and city ordinance calls for the removal of the mayor and the council member. So at this point,
What is your change?
I would move that section A of 2.16 be amended to strike mayor and council member, leaving only appointed officers subject to removal under the list associated under that section. Again, that would allow for state law and city ordinance to detail in rule how the mayor and an elected council member would be removed, as opposed to this section in the charter.
Okay.
That was a motion, correct?
She didn't
Yes,
say it.
that was a motion.
Okay, second.
Properly moved and second. We're now in discussion. Mr. Crane.
Madam Vice Chair, can you share with this body the rationale behind?
Microphone, please.
Madam Vice Chair, can you share with this body your rationale behind taking away these several bullet points that speak specifically for Ways and Means?
Thank you for that question. It is because South Fulton ordinances as well as state law dictates the removal of local elected officials, as opposed to it being in this charter.
Is this inconsistent with that state law?
In the event that it is, this motion would rectify that.
Anybody else? I'm still catching up, Mr. Crane.
I was, listen, if this list is in conflict, I think we ought to do a deeper dive to find out what is in conflict. Because what it does, unless you're going to put state law as a replacement rather than having very vague language, I don't think the removal of an elected official should be based upon vague language. I think we ought to be very, very forward-thinking when it comes to this. So I think we ought to look for inconsistencies between what's in the charter, expanded if need be, corrected if need be, to be consistent with state law. It could be just a matter of a cut and paste, but I think it needs to be spelled out.
Go ahead.
Ms. Crane, I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that you prefer spelling out as it is currently in the charter, or referencing it with state law, aligning with state law, the removal of the mayor and city council. For clarity, my motion speaks to aligning the removal of the elected officials with state law, as opposed to spelling it out in this list in the charter. So I accept, if that is a friendly amendment, I'm not quite clear what the amendment is.
Let me take another swing at this. I was saying, if there are some inconsistencies between what is current law in the charter and what the state law affords for removal, I think we ought to make it consistent where the language is the same. I think it ought to be bullet pointed so that people can be able to look at it in a glance and see, if you do this, this is, the consequences would be, well, you have crossed the line and you can be removed for this action, rather than having to refer to a secondary document. I think we ought to have it listed here, whether we bullet point it, expand this list, or we take the state law and drop it in here to replace it. I don't have a preference there, but I think it ought to be bullet pointed.
Mr. Clerk, is there any resolutions out there that speaks to this?
Removal of officers. I'm not aware of anything right now.
You guys, legal department, you aware of any resolution or ordinance out there that speaks to this issue?
The city of South Fulton ordinance or state law?
City of South
Should be
Fulton
state
ordinance. No? Okay. All right. Ms. Ockleberry, and then we're going to, do we have a second? Okay.
I think, so I have a question regarding, if we make this section only for appointed officers, then the only way that they could be removed, and I'm going to ask the city attorney to opine, is under B2, which is an order of the Superior Court of Fulton County. But if the appointed officer is a city manager, city attorney, or city clerk, I thought there were ways for them to be removed other than through the Superior Court. So I'm just trying to make sure we're not getting ourselves crosswise in our recommendation.
You're correct.
Okay. So based upon that, I don't know that changing it to just appointed officers. I think we need to take a more holistic view, because otherwise we're going to be in conflict with the charter itself. Because we're saying at one point, you need an order of Superior Court to remove them, but in the other portions dealing with the city manager, I guess the city attorney, which I was going to address, it's a council vote. So I think we would be conflicting.
Okay, let me take Mr. Taggart, and there's a second on the motion, am I correct, Mr. Clerk? And then we'll
Correct.
move to vote. Go ahead, Mr. Taggart.
I seconded the motion because I think it makes sense, but I do agree to the extent of, if we're gonna have this, you gotta put in state law. I don't know this off the top of my head, what does state law speak to removal of a mayor or council person in this case? I mean, without having that information, I think to my colleague, Mr. Crane's point, he's trying to do a side-by-side comparison to see what we already have in the state law. And if it is, then we don't really need to change it. We just need to make sure that we put additional items from the state law here and list it in this case. Or we go from this perspective and having just saying state law, but I still think you need some detail in the charter.
Would I be safe to say that the charter is state law, Mr. Attorney?
No, Your Honor. Common parlance is that when we say state law, we're referring to general law.
Right.
Whereas the city charter is a local law.
Okay. We're going, Mr. Crane, we're going to get past this. We're going to go to Mr. Crane, and we're going to get Mr. Ockleberry, then we're going to vote. Go right ahead.
I'm supportive of the motion to limited extent.
Microphone.
I'm supportive of the motion to a limited extent, but in section 2.12, vacancies in office, in section A, last part of that bullet point, removal from office in any manner authorized by this charter or by the general laws of the state of Georgia. So the vice chair is correct that, it's there. But isn't it true, Mr. Attorney, that if the charter is not broad enough, it would be subordinate to state law?
Yeah.
That's true.
Or left up to interpretation.
The charter
No,
is
it's not interpretation.
subordinate.
It's subordinate to state law.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's correct.
Right. So we don't need to do anything necessarily if this charter is subordinate to state law. If there's something that was left out and someone does something that's part of the OCG code, whatever, you can still be removed please correct me if I'm wrong, you can still be removed if the state law prevails and if it's broader than the local law.
That's correct. If I may offer some additional guidance,
Yes.
I'm looking at state law now. I'm looking at OCGA 45-5-1, which is titled Offices, how vacated. By the way, Title 45 in the OCGA is public officers and employees generally. And it goes on to say all offices shall be in the state shall be vacated, and then it gives a list of 7 reasons. 1 is by death of the incumbent, 2 is by resignation, 3 is by decision of a competent tribunal declaring the office vacant, which I think is the section under which we generally travel in our charter, allowing the Superior Court to decide if someone has violated the charter and therefore their office should be vacated. Yeah. Then it goes on to say by voluntary act or misfortune of the incumbent whereby he is placed in any of the specified conditions of ineligibility to office. 5 is by the incumbent ceasing to be a resident of the state or of the county, circuit, or district for which he was elected. 6 is by failing to apply for and obtain commissions or certificates, or by failing to qualify or give bond. And 7 is abandoning office. So that's the general state law. And then also, of course, there's a separate statute that vacates office if you're convicted of a felony. But that's state law generally. on how a public office would be vacated. And then the city charter, what I believe it's doing is giving more specific guidance
Right.
on these specific types of actions that could cause a tribunal to declare your office to be vacant. And once again, that tribunal will be the Superior Court of Fulton County.
All right. Ms. Ockleberry, then we'll vote.
I want to make a friendly amendment.
Did you make
is-
the motion? Okay, go ahead.
Which is to keep the mayor or a council person and remove or other appointed officers. Because there are provisions in this charter for how to remove appointed officers, such as the city clerk, the city manager, the city attorney, which is through a vote of council. This provision conflicts with that because it says the only way an appointed officer who violates the charter could be removed is by an order of Superior Court. What this should allow, as our learned city attorney just indicated, this pertains to elected officials and provides more detail as to how they can be removed. The appointed officers by council and the mayor have their own process separate and apart from this, and I don't think that the charter is intended to allow the only way that those appointed officers can be removed is by going to Superior Court.
So what is your friendly amendment?
So my friendly amendment is to remove from 2.16A or other appointed officers.
Do you accept that?
No, it makes no sense.
While that
Excuse
wasn't
me. Oh,
the
go ahead.
initial goal of the motion, Madam Ockleberry has made sense, and I identified that there is a current conflict in the charter as it relates to the removal of
Sure.
mayor, council members, and appointed officials. So I accept the friendly amendment as this section is more in alignment with the removal of the mayor and the council member, and allow the remaining portions of the charter to speak to the removal of appointed officers.
Who was the seconder?
Taggart.
Mr. Taggart? You? Okay.
Say
Question,
that again.
question on.
No, we're gonna vote. We're gonna vote. So by show of hands, let's vote, please. Or would you like to have it read again? Would you read it again?
Yeah, I'd work with me on the, so originally I had from Judge Edwards and seconded by Mr. Taggart to remove the mayor and council member from section 2.16 under A. I understand the friendly amendment to be to remove other appointed officers from that
Is
section.
that correct, Ms. Ockleberry?
Only, correct, only.
Only, correct.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's vote, please. Show of hands. What's the vote?
Okay, nays? Abstain? Okay, so that's 6-1.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Crane, go right ahead.
on the next item, can we spend a moment or two to talk about officers in a broader sense? We just approved making a recommendation to remove the language for them committing a felony that is automatically reason for removal. Where can we place that to make sure that there are some teeth in this charter that speaks to, that will be the attorney, that will be the whoever the officers may be, the finance director, whatever the office is, where that we put teeth back in it, or where do we find the language that's already in there that speaks to the specifics of being engaging in conduct, unbecoming a member, failure to expose corruption wherever it exists,
Well-
convicted of crimes involving moral turpitude.
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Attorney, you read from the state law that I assume covered that issue. Am I correct? I can hear your head shaking.
That was me thinking. I would have to confirm which public officials state law is with effect.
Okay.
I don't know if the state law goes beyond affected elected officials, so I would have to take some time to research.
So, Mr. Cream, would you allow that, and we could come
Absolutely.
back and
Sure.
and do that. Next issue. Let's move along. We're gonna get out of here at least by 8:30. We were at to what? Where were we, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, actually, you just approved the motion by Ms. Ockleberry regarding 2.16A, and so the floor is open.
Floor is open.
What section was that again? I'm sorry.
2.16.
Can we get over to 3
A.
here?
2.16.
Yes, 2.16.
Anybody has anything else in section 2 that we need to discuss? Anybody?
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, D, go right ahead.
I would like to, I guess we could bring it up for discussion. But I feel that there are some items that we need to add to if we're the removal of officers.
Yeah.
So-
That's what we asked them, with Mr. Crane's comments.
Uh-huh.
We asked him to go back, to go back and look at some things. We're gonna bring it back.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Ms. Ockleberry, go right ahead.
So I have a question, because the original, I guess, GMA model charter provided under 2.15B1 that an individual would be removed, mayor, council member, appointed officer, they would be suspended, I guess, if convicted of a felony under 45.5-6.1B. And that was reserved here, and I'm trying to find out if anybody knows why that provision was reserved and wasn't included.
So we want to put that in. That's why we asked the attorney to go back and look at what's the effect for the municipality as it pertains to state law. So I think that that falls in that area.
Well, that was from the Georgia Model Municipal Charter, so I think that could be maybe added.
Yes, we can talk about that later. Georgia, it's a municipal charter. It ain't the Bible, so
Right.
we'll do it that way. What else did we? And are we out? Anybody got anything else in section 2? Are we getting everybody's? What do you call it? What do you call the little thing we have? SharePoint.
Mr. Chair.
We're getting everybody's SharePoints in. Yes, Mr. Grant.
Did we resolve the conversation around 2.12 vacancies? We had a robust conversation regarding the council's ability to appoint, because there was some concerns about House 7 came open and we couldn't get it filled. I think we left that kind of.
I don't recall, Mr. Grant, but I do think that what we talked about in terms of at-large council people would take care of that. But I don't think we definitely, and it won't go into effect immediately, but I don't think.
If it takes effect at all.
Yeah, if it takes effect at all.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else got anything in section 2? Can we go, anybody in section 3? And I want y'all to know I left my notebook, so I got some, when we come back, I got some more stuff. Okay, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to draw the commission's attention to section 3.13 that references meetings of the city council. In section A, it says that the city council, I'll go forward with 3.13. Specially called meetings. A specially called meeting may be currently called by the mayor or 5 members of the city council. I am proposing that a specially called meeting only be able to be called by 5 members of the city council and not by simply the mayor itself.
Well, I'm gonna have to vehemently say no to that.
Okay.
I think that's fine as it sits there. It gives a little checks and balance to things. We don't want to wade in the weeds of little stuff. That seems to work pretty well. And I would say to you respectfully, that I will leave it where it is. But you can make a motion.
Can you share your rationale behind that?
Simply that it calls or it allows for the supermajority to make the decisions on specially called meetings, which apparently which are for
5.
items of special consideration.
So if I understood, you said you only want that supermajority to be able to call a special meeting and no longer the mayor?
Correct. It currently stands as the mayor and the supermajority, and I'm proposing for discussion.
It says or, not and, but or.
Or.
Either one can call them. The mayor can call for a special meeting or the supermajority.
Correct.
Well, let me say this, the supermajority is still involved because if the mayor calls for a special meeting, he ain't got a quorum. It doesn't matter.
Right, but
So
I just want to
the
make sure. her
supermajority-
language-
so-
I think she misread that. I don't think you understood the or.
Yeah.
Either one can call
So
for
the supermajority is still in control. See what I'm saying? Because if I call a meeting as a mayor and I can't get 4 people in there, I don't have a meeting.
Okay. No motion at this time. Thank you.
Okay, next.
I have one, which is, I guess that same section, 3.13B, which it says the mayor or 5 council members are needed to call a special meeting, yet under 3.18, the mayor or 4 council members can call an emergency ordinance. And so I'm just wondering, do we want to be consistent throughout the charter? 4 council members constitute a quorum and just require 4 council members in 3.13B as it is in 3.18. It just seems to be a little inconsistent with the numbers.
Yeah, perhaps,
Mr. Crane, go ahead.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, an emergency constitutes that this is critical, this is urgent, and we may not be able to get 5. You know, this may be the height of vacation time, but something that may spell imminent danger or something that we got to deal with right here, right now, you know, you still have a majority of the council there. It's not that quote-unquote supermajority, but I think that's why there's a difference between just a regular special meeting and an emergency, so that you can draw that distinction between the two.
So are you saying that there's a different qualification for an emergency meeting as a special call meeting? Is that what you're saying?
You're asking me, or you're asking Mr. Crane?
I'm either one of you all, Mr. Crane or you.
I don't think there should be a difference. If there's a special meeting and 4 is a quorum, and either the mayor or the quorum can call it, I'm not sure why there's 5. 5 required there, and if it's an emergency, only 4 are required. A special meeting to me also means there's an issue that needs to be addressed that is not to be addressed under the regular meeting because they can't wait until then. So I'm not understanding the distinction and just trying to be consistent throughout the charter.
I think that it's just the issue of a supermajority and which one of those particular events are more important. You can get 4 very easy, then you can get 5, you know. And supermajority kind of makes it where, you know, you don't have that full vote control and something is important. Mr. Taggart, go ahead.
Is the supermajority going to be redefined? Because now we've recommended to have 2 super districts.
I don't see why.
You're talking about 7 people.
Will that be 7 members as opposed to 5? Just
Whatever supermajority is, we still have 7 members under that proposal. So you still have the same amount for supermajority.
That's right.
how so?
We didn't create any more council people. What we did, we said 5 district council people and 2 at large. So we still have the 7.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's still more, not
No.
5.
No, it's the same.
Still 7 people. That just means 2 people who have district seats now would end up in at-large seats. You have the same 7 seats, but 2 of them will be
Yeah.
elected citywide.
Got it, Mr. Taggart?
Gotcha.
Okay? So let me go back to what you were saying. Where are we on that?
So we were on 3.1, hold on.
3.13B.
3.13B, thank you. And I made a motion to recommend that it be special meetings of the city council may be held on the call of the mayor or 4 members of the city council.
My recommendation would be to leave it where it is.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important that we look at the language in 3.18 on the emergencies. It talks about what constitutes. In the opening salvo, it says to meet a public emergency affecting life, health, property, public peace. Those are the kinds of things that constitute an emergency.
Right.
I don't believe that those things would rise to just a regular special meeting. I think
Right.
those were put in there to clearly delineate the difference between an emergency and a non-emergency. And I
Okay.
certainly agree with you that this might not, I think it's better to leave that.
Right.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion. Doesn't appear there's going to be a second for it, so we can move on.
Well, don't cower out like that.
Huh?
Don't cower out like that. You can-
I'm
you
going to
can-
make it easy.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ockleberry. Anyone else? And we're in section 3.
So can you,
Ms. Ockleberry, go ahead.
Mr. Clerk, can you go to 3.22? And it's 3.22B, I think it is 10. A motion that we recommend regarding the city manager, city attorney, and chief judge of municipal court be based upon a personnel committee of the city council rather than being strictly nominated by the mayor. And that would go into 3.23 and I think it is 4.13, the city clerk, as well as the city attorney. And I say that because it might be beneficial for the city to have a personnel committee composed of city council members who will make a recommendation to the entire city council on these individuals based upon their qualifications and having vetted them. I think it's important for us to try to have some continuity in these top positions, not only in terms of how they're hired, but how they're terminated. So the start to me is allowing a committee to make the recommendation to city council and then city council voting on those recommendations for those top positions.
In terms of, well, I think we have a good committee. It's called HR. HR recommends, and then to the council, along with the mayor. HR will handle all of the procedural things, the education background, and all of that. And in concert with the mayor, then he makes his appointment. So they may not do a good job, some of them, but we have that in line. I'm just putting it out there so you'll know that's how the function goes.
Mr. Chair.
Let me finish, Ms. Ockleberry. She still had the floor.
No, I'll
Okay.
defer to him, then you
Mr.
can come
Crane.
to me.
Isn't it true, Mr. Chair, that in a weak mayor form of government, that the most awesome power that the mayor has is the power of appointment? And if you take that away, I mean, you pretty much make him ceremonial.
No. I would say this, Mr. Crane. The mayor makes an appointment based on everything. For example, city manager. You know, you look at background, you look at the resume, you look at all that stuff, okay? You forward it on to the city council because you know you're going to have to get them for a vote.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that's going to go. All right, my first recommendation to the city council, it fell in the toilet.
But it was still your recommendation, though. You had the authority and power to do that.
But I don't want to get. I'm lost with authority and power.
Well, I mean,
I have the right under the charter.
right.
based on charter language, to appoint certain people.
Right.
All right, and so that's about it. So the power lies still in the city council.
Well, thank you for correcting my language, but that's the point I was trying to make.
Yes. All right, Madam Vice Chair?
Are we ready to move on to the next?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to draw the commission's attention to page 14 of the current charter, section 3.5, voting.
Okay.
And as a recommendation of the model charter, I am proposing to prohibit abstentions from voting. The reason being is because abstentions, number one, Robert's Rules of Order and the latest version dictate that abstentions should be abolished because abstentions are essentially a vote. However, if a vote is yes or no, those that chose not to vote by default have abstained without being called out for abstentions. In addition, in the model charter, it is highly recommended that cities prohibit abstentions because abstentions can also be strategically abused. So based on that, and just to reference, I'm back on section 3.5, voting. I am proposing that in accordance with Robert rules and the model charter, that abstentions be prohibited in the voting structure of the city, of the council.
You mean 3.15?
Okay.
3.15, voting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 3.1.
Wait. Let me,
sorry.
everybody at one time. The screen that you want to talk.
No, he just needed to know the part, 3.15. Yeah.
So you did make a statement I want to clarify. You said abstentions were considered a vote. If they were, what kind of vote is it?
It's a vote to abstain, but if you're abstaining, it's you're refraining from making any decision, but when you're forced to vote for an abstention, it's sort of putting that person on the spot. And so
Vote for an abstention?
when the clerk asks
Yes.
any abstentions,
Yes.
that's a call to raise your hand.
Right.
When essentially that same thing is accomplished by not asking for an abstention.
Well, I think one of the things I do feel, Madam Vice Chair, that extension sometimes is cowards ways out. And one thing I didn't do, and I should have done more frequently in terms of an abstention, was to ask the reason why you're abstaining. And matter of fact, if someone slipped by me on this council today, did a vote and abstained, I didn't ask her why she was abstaining. But we have so many people that continuously abstain. I don't know whether it's out of lack of preparation or whatever the case may be, but we got people that continuously abstain even after aggressive debate on a situation. So I don't know whether, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is whether they abstain or whether we have the right to abstain, wouldn't it work out to be the same thing?
If I may?
Well,
It's her question, I'm going to ask her.
The question is that abstentions are prohibited. There is some language in this section that already prohibits abstentions. However, I am suggesting that specific language, according to the model charter, be placed in the charter prohibiting abstention.
So it's yes, no, or nothing?
Correct.
Is nothing not an abstention?
Right here.
Okay, let me get Ms. Ockleberry, then I get D. And then I'll
So,
get Mr.
and that's what I was just talking to the vice chair about. The current charter under 3.15A says no council member shall abstain from voting except in the case of a conflict or if absent when a motion being voted upon was made. I think those are two, permissible times when a council member should be able to abstain.
That's correct.
I think the issue is whether or not it's being enforced, but it is already in the charter.
D, go right ahead.
As for me, I abstain tonight, and the reason why, for me, I want to do a little bit more research to understand the topic better. and to get more clarity. So that was my reason.
Most people abstain, want more information. All right, Mr. Taggart and then Mr. Crane.
Well, I'm glad that that was brought out by Ms. Ockleberry in terms of that piece, because I was reading that, but can we get some clarification? I thought extensions or abstaining go in the majority
Nope.
per Robert's Rules of Order. That's not the case? Okay.
Wish it was. Okay, you
No
finished?
problem. Thank you. Yes.
All right, Mr. Crane, go right ahead.
I think it's important that we not stop at the sentence that we stopped at. I think it's important to read the next sentence when we're talking about removing language that allows a person to abstain, because there are some valid reasons that a person might need to abstain, because voting on something where you could potentially profit from a decision made could get you in jail. So it would be in your best interest to abstain. Now, the next line says, a council member shall provide specific explanation of the conflict.
Yeah.
So it's important, it's incumbent upon the person that's running the meeting to say, okay, where's your explanation? What's the conflict? It's important. I don't think we ought to put the council member in a position to violate the law by voting up or down on an issue where there is perhaps a monetary benefit for voting yes on that issue. They ought to be allowed to abstain under
Well,
certain circumstances.
Mr. Crane, I've asked, in my tenure, I've asked a lot of times on the extension why. And I guarantee 99% of the time it's what she said. I need some more information. Well, even though we sent the information out and had an opportunity to talk with people, they would say, I need some more information. So, and if there is a conflict, I hope that anybody who is compromised in any situation would make that abstention up front, you know, before the call of the vote. All right. Is there a motion? Did you put a motion on the floor?
Are we moving on from there?
Did I put a motion?
Yes, she brought attention to 3.15, but it wasn't seconded.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I believe I moved, but it was not seconded.
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Neither did the clerk.
Yeah, she did say moved. Yeah,
Yeah.
I moved, yeah.
Yeah. So are you going to make the motion?
I moved previously and it was not a second. So the
Okay.
motion fails.
Well, correct the minutes to show that she moved and it fell for lack of a second. All right, let's go on. Ms. Ockleberry, you have something?
I do 3.23 regarding the city manager. I would like to move that we make a recommendation in terms of the removal process for the city manager. It required that it be done at a meeting, city council meeting, placed on a regular agenda with notice. And I think that's lacking from the procedures set forth in 3.23.
Is there a motion?
That was my motion.
Could you restate the motion?
So my motion is that we recommend under 3.23B1 that if there is a recommendation to remove the city manager, that the removal be done at a meeting, on a regularly scheduled meeting, I guess, on an agenda with proper notice to the public.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails. Next item.
Motion under 3.25. One, to recommend that there be additional language that employees are employee at will under 3.251, so that there's no issue or concern as to those employees.
if you will restate the motion
So
particularly.
under 3.251, there be a recommendation to the delegation that there be included in that section that the City of South Fulton employees are employees at will. That prevents any kind of contract issues or litigation over that, except for those top positions, and I'll get to those in a minute. But I think that would save the city funds and litigation about, employees suing if they've been, terminated, believing they have a contract with the city. So by stating that they're employees at will, it's pretty clear.
Is there a second to the addition of at-will employment to this section? Hearing none. The motion fails. Next agenda item. Ms. Ockleberry?
My next motion is that under 3.25, that the employee salaries and compensation would be set in accordance with the city budget, city pay, and classification plans. I don't know if that's stated anywhere in any ordinance, but to ensure that it is set forth in the charter so that everyone is aware of how city employee salaries would be set.
I think we do that now, paying classifications, am I right, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, I believe it's by ordinance.
by
Ms.
ordinance.
Renee?
Yes, and also, it's in Unicode, the at-will portion is also in Unicode under city ordinance.
Okay.
Maybe,
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, to help us along, is it possible to get a copy of those things as we go into these chapters that are already in Unicode?
Yes, oh yes. Yeah, well, the whole charter is in Unicode as currently.
What we have today is current
Yes.
in Unicode. Okay,
Correct.
that's all I need to know
Correct.
then. Okay. So where are we, Ms. Ockleberry? I'm sorry.
I make another recommendation under 3.251. It says the word city suspend or remove, and I just make a motion, the recommendation that the term be consistent throughout the charter. Sometimes it says remove, sometimes it says terminate. So just for consistency, we recommend they either use remove or terminate.
Which one are you using in your motion?
Terminate.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
I second for consistency.
Okay. Properly moved and second. Discussion. Any further discussion on it?
Yes.
Mr. Crane?
I think that the administrators of a city, the leaders of a government, probably want to have the discretion to rehabilitate a person. But if you're only able to remove them, suspending will give you an opportunity for them to take some type of courses. Let's say, if it's whatever it might be, they may need to do in order to be reformed from the action that caused them to be suspended. I think that should always be an arrow in their quiver to suspend them and bring them back. It's just like in, adjudicating a criminal case, you can get probation or you can go to prison, so you can get a softer sentence or you can get a more harsh sentence. The more harsh would be you're fired. Suspension would mean you go home for 2 days without pay for talking to that constituent that way, whatever the case may be.
I think I agree with you, Mr. Crane, and we do that a lot.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, yes,
So-
I will.
So the issue is, I'm just trying to make the language consistent in 3.251. The city can still suspend somebody, but it says or remove. Suspending is the same as removing. In other places, it says suspend or terminate. So my motion is just to ensure that the language throughout the charter is consistent. It's either suspend or remove or suspend or terminate. That's all. Because it's different language at different places, although it means the same thing. If they're removing you, they're terminating you.
Well, removing could mean you're clearly not in that position anymore, but terminate nor remove mean the same thing as suspension. Suspension means you're out of that position for a requisite amount of time, and you could come back. But removal means you've lost that position, generally speaking.
Okay. Ms. Ockleberry, I'm sorry, did Ms. Herring? Go right ahead.
I'm a little confused
Yeah.
at the moment because the initial comment was consistency of language. Has nothing to do with rehabilitation. Now, that may occur in another item under this section, but at the moment, the discussion should be consistency of language. And I think that's what the motion is, and this discussion should be heading towards.
Yes, sir. Okay. I'm going to stop discussion, and let's take a vote, please. All in favor, show of hands.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
And all nays?
2. Abstentions?
Any abstention? You abstention? You abstention?
No.
You're
No,
nay.
that was,
Okay.
I left my hand too long.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you. So that passes?
Wow.
Does
No,
that
that was 4 to 2. I didn't get Ms. Franklin's vote. Yes or no?
Yes.
okay.
So that's 5-2.
Okay. I could be.
So that was to remove.
5-2.
Yes.
I voted.
You voted in affirmative.
No, I didn't. Negative.
Negative, and Mr. Crane was a negative. 5-2.
No. What you voted?
In
Okay,
affirmative.
good. All right, there you go. Uh-huh.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that's me, sir, over here.
Oh, that's you. Oh.
I just want to confirm that recommendation is that the terms removal and termination will be consistent outside of the term suspension.
Correct.
Is that everyone's understanding of that?
That's what I'm understanding.
All right, I appreciate it.
That's my understanding as well.
Are we removing suspension or are we removing remove? Which is,
It is as the city, my motion was as the city attorney has stated it.
Correct.
well, I didn't understand what the city attorney said. Could you restate that, please?
There are 3 different terms: removal, suspension, and termination.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding of the recommendation that the terms removal and termination will be consolidated into either one of those terms, whichever is chosen.
Terminate.
But the term suspension will remain separate from those two concepts.
That's my understanding. Okay. All right. Next.
Are we also making recommendations to correct typos, or? Because I found several throughout the charter. She's shaking, the city attorney is shaking her head yes. So, what is the first typo? The first typo is 3.15, A, last line. It says he recorded, I think, and it should be recorded. So I make a motion that the charter be corrected to read be recorded.
What line are you referring to?
Is that
Last
necessary?
line, 3.15A.
Let me ask you something, Ms. Ockleberry. For simplicity's sake, can we list all of the typos?
Sure.
And as we go to the draft, we'll make them at that time?
Okay. You want me to list them now, or you want to wait?
No, just give us a list of them.
Okay.
All right,
It's
and during the final draft, we can take care of that.
2.16A, it says it should be removed from office.
Okay, so what you need to do is just go
You want
and
me
give
to-
us a list when you come back.
Oh,
So
so
we
you
can
don't
add-
want me to say it on the record
No,
now?
you don't have to
That's
do it
fine.
now, okay?
Okay.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, sir.
Ms. Ockleberry, I believe you've indicated you're in the
have.
draft document, so we'll have that list.
And then if you see any more, you can add to that list.
So all of the typos that I identified, I've put in the SharePoint.
Good, that's wonderful, okay? And we can do them all at one time. Okay, Mr. Taggart, yes. I'm looking your way.
Okay, I'm not going to go through the typos. I'm just asking a question about section 3.28, the council's interference with administration. I think it clearly states what needs to take place, but what are the consequences associated with city council interfering with city officers and employees? What are the consequences associated with that? I mean, because I don't understand why this section is even here if there's no consequences associated with it. Yeah.
Well, the charter
is there an ethics piece that
yes,
someone?
that was one piece you could do, but the charter is clear as to what your authority is, and clearly, the city manager runs the city, and the employees and the council are policymakers. So I've been very clear in my tenure that I had no power to tell an employee anything, and I could be brought up on ethics charges if I did.
Well, my thought is, if that's the case, then I think we should put some ethics language in this section. There could be some type of ethics violation.
So you're simply saying if this happens, that the person can be brought up on ethics?
That's correct.
Charges. Is that what you want to include?
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, we should give city employees the opportunity.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you. Ms. Ockleberry.
So that's provided for in 2.16A1, which allows for removal from office for failure to uphold the charter and the code of ordinances of the city. So presumably, if you don't go to the Superior Court and get an order to remove them, that you could file an ethics complaint against them, and the ethics, could make a recommendation, and the city could move forward to then, file a complaint in Superior Court.
Yes.
Against the elected official.
Yes. Specifically while that's in there, I think Mr. Taggart is getting to the point that if I commit that, it says nothing as to what my punishment should be. Am I correct, Mr. Taggart?
Yes, sir. I'm not suggesting that an elected official, city officers who may violate, that they're be suggested that they're going to be out of office. I think it should be a first step in terms of internally ethics charges can be brought against that particular individual who's interfering with their day-to-day. That's what I'm recommending, Ms. Ockleberry.
Is that a motion?
So
I move
state your motion.
that we in turn add a line in section 3.28 that talks about and references ethics associated with if a city officer, city council or NORS member shall give orders to such employer, officer or employee, either publicly or privately.
Ms. Ockleberry, let me get a second. Allow me to get a second. Is there a second to his motion?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Now, Ms. Ockleberry, we're in discussion. Go right ahead.
So if we go to section 6A1A, it says, any person may file an ethics complaint alleging a violation of any provision of this charter or any ethics ordinance. So I think to have something that detailed, when this covers the entire charter, that would just be redundant. This is broad enough to cover your concerns, Mr. Taggart. And if I'm incorrect, let me know.
Okay, no problem. If I may.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Taggart.
The language is there, so let's make the reference in the document to that particular section.
Oh, that may do
So
it.
we're going to work together, okay? So the key is not to reinvent, it's to make the reference so it's very clear that it's in this particular section.
So we would do that then for every single instance where we're setting out the roles and responsibilities of the council.
I'm not
Let me
suggesting.
finish. The roles and responsibilities of the council person or the mayors. I think this 6A1A is broad enough and was purposely written that way to encompass what's in the charter and any new ethics ordinances that may be adopted. I think if we start delineating specific instances, in which an ethics complaint may be filed, we'll miss some, and then we're being redundant. So if you look at 6A, 1A, and I would ask you this question, does it not cover a concern if a city official interferes in government such that an ethics complaint could not be filed?
And I think what you just mentioned is not germane to what the actual motion in the second is put in. I'm being very specific to say for this particular area that we should reference what you mentioned, 6-1A.
Okay, we have
That's
a
all.
motion. Dee, you want to say something?
I move to adjourn.
Not with a motion on the floor.
No,
Yeah. Let
That's
me-
why I was pulling back, but I'm like, okay, you caught me.
I didn't hear you, Dee. What you say?
No, I was just pulling my motion back because I didn't know there was a second. We needed a second.
Yes, she got a second. It's okay, let's vote. All in favor? You voting yes?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed?
Oppose?
1, 2, 3.
Abstain? Who abstain? Who abstain? Dee, you abstain?
No, no,
You did, Dee? Or
no, I
Okay.
did not.
All right.
So the
good.
vote was 4-3, and,
Right.
and that did not receive the requisite number to pass.
Okay.
Now I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Properly moved to second that we adjourn. Any discussion? I got,
Yeah.
you had 7 people here today, and 4 people voted in the affirmative. Why would that not pass?
You actually, attorney?
Don't everybody holler at one time. I think we just made a mistake.
I believe the clerk announced that that motion did not pass because the individual that moved the motion voted in the negative.
Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
I didn't vote in the negative. I did the motion. I voted in the affirmative.
My apologies, I thought there was someone else.
Okay, so that vote passes.
It was 4-3.
Yes, that vote passes. I went to Mohawks. I can count
Stand corrected?
And I went to Clarkland, I can count better.
backwards. Okay, we got a motion on the floor to adjourn. Any discussion? Let's vote for the adjournment, please. Raise your hand. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
A great evening.
Thank you.
Good job.
Adjourned at 8:22.